Right now, as you're watching this, there's a version of you that closed this tab 3 seconds in. There's another version that skipped ahead. Another one that's watching this at 2x speed while eating cereal at 11 p.m. According to one of the strangest ideas in modern physics, all of those versions are real. They happened. They just canceled each other out so completely that you only ever experience the one you're living right now. This isn't science fiction. This is a real, tested, working piece of physics called Over Histories, and it was built by a guy who used to crack safes at Los Alamos for fun. His name was Richard Feynman, and what he figured out doesn't just explain how electrons move. It quietly explains why your entire life looks the way it does, and why the path you took might be the wrong way to even think about your own past. Stick around, because by the end of this, the idea of a single fixed reality is going to feel a lot shakier than it does right now. Let's start with something dumb simple. You're standing in a room. You want to walk to the door. Obviously, you just walk in a straight line, right? That's the path you took. One path, one reality. Case closed. Except Feynman asked a question that sounds almost childish. How does the universe know that the straight line is the right one? How does a photon of light, traveling from a light bulb to your eye, know to travel in a straight line instead of looping around your house first? You'd say, because it's the shortest path, obviously. But shortest according to who? Physics doesn't come with a ruler taped to the side of the universe telling particles which way is efficient, so Feynman did something wild. Instead of assuming the particle picks one path, he assumed it doesn't pick at all. Here's the open loop, because this is where it gets uncomfortable. Feynman's math says that a particle moving from point A to point B doesn't take the straight path, or the curved path, or any single path. It takes every path simultaneously, the straight line, the loop around the house, the path that goes to the moon and back. All of it, all at once, every possible route through space and time, layered on top of each other like a stack of transparent film. And somehow, out of that infinite mess of possibilities, only the straight line survives to become what we actually observe. Why does almost everything cancel out except the one path we call reality? Hold that question, because we're going to answer it, and the answer is going to mess with how you see your own decisions. Let's slow down and build this properly. Because this isn't some vague metaphor. It's an actual calculation Feynman did as a young physicist. Picture every possible path a particle could take from A to B as its own tiny story, its own little history. Feynman said, assign every single one of those histories a number, like a fingerprint based on something called the action, basically a measure of how much physics effort that path takes. Then you add up the fingerprints from every possible path, all infinite of them, using a rule from complex numbers that lets things constructively pile up or destructively erase each other, like waves in a bathtub. Some paths, when you add their fingerprints together, reinforce each other and get louder. Other paths cancel each other out completely and go silent. When you do the math for something big and ordinary, like a baseball or your own body walking through a room, almost every single wild path, the ones that loop, that wander, that go backwards in time for a split second, cancelled itself into nothing. The only path that survives the cancellation is the one that matches classical physics, the straight line, the path you'd expect from Newton. That's the punchline. Newton's neat, obvious, single-path world isn't the fundamental truth. It's the leftover residue after an infinite crowd of alternate paths mostly cancels itself out of existence. Now, here's your pattern interrupt. Because I need you to actually feel this, not just hear it. Picture flipping a coin in your head. Right now there is exactly one coin, exactly one flip, exactly one outcome. But according to some Over Histories logic scaled up to everyday life, in the messy underlying layer of reality, that coin sort of explores, landing heads, tails on its edge, bouncing off the table twice, rolling under the couch. All of it, weighted and combined. Almost all of those alternate stories cancel out. What's left, what you actually witness, is the one outcome that survives the wash. You're not watching a coin flip, you're watching the result of an invisible election between billions of competing histories, and the winner is the only one loud enough to still be standing. This is where most people expect the story to end, but Feynman's idea does something even weirder when you shrink things down to the size of a single electron or a single photon. At the human scale, the cancellation is basically perfect, so you never see the ghost paths, you only ever see one straight line outcome. But at the tiny scale of individual particles, the cancellation isn't perfect. The alternate paths leave fingerprints, and there's one experiment that proves it beyond any doubt. An experiment Feynman himself called the heart of quantum mechanics, the double slit experiment. Fire single electrons one at a time at a wall with two thin slits cut into it, with a screen behind to catch them. Common sense says each electron goes through slit 1 or slit 2, and you get two piles building up on the screen behind each slit. That is not what happens. Instead, you get a rippled, striped pattern, like waves interfering with each other, even though you're firing the electrons one at a time, with nothing else around to interfere with. The only way to explain that pattern is if each single electron, on its own, somehow travels through both slits at once and interferes with itself, exactly the way some Over Histories predicts, because the electron isn't taking one path, it's taking every path, including the ones through slit 1 and slit 2 simultaneously, and those paths are colliding and combining before they ever hit the screen. Let's reset for a second, because I promised you a twist, and here it is. You'd think the weirdness stops at electrons. It doesn't. The same framework Feynman used for particles has been extended by physicists into something called path integrals in quantum field theory, and it's now one of the core tools used to calculate how particles like quarks and photons behave inside the Large Hadron Collider. The same sum over every possible story trick that explains a single electron's flicker also underpins how physicists model the birth of particles in the most extreme conditions we can build on Earth. That means this isn't a cute analogy that only works for toy examples. It's load-bearing. Real predictions, real experiments, real machinery, all built on the idea that reality is secretly a sum of every possible thing that could have happened, mostly cancelling into the one thing that did. So here's the climax, the part that turns this from cool physics fact into something that actually rewires how you think about your own life. If Feynman is right, then the path you took was never really a single, solitary event chosen from nothing. It was the last survivor of an enormous, invisible competition between every possible path. A competition decided by interference, by cancellation, by which possibilities reinforced each other, and which ones erased themselves into silence. Your morning, your decisions, the version of today you're currently living. It isn't the only thing that was tried. It's the outcome loud enough to survive. That's not a metaphor about optimism or manifesting or any of that. It's closer to how the universe, mathematically, actually seems to compute what happens next, not by choosing, but by adding up everything that could happen and watching what refuses to cancel out. And that's genuinely one of the most disorienting things about modern physics. We like to think of reality as a single film strip, one frame after another, one path from A to B. Feynman's math suggests the film strip is really the surviving average of an uncountable stack of alternate film strips. Almost all of them erased, layered so precisely on top of each other that we mistake the leftover outline for the whole picture. The straight line you thought you walked to the door was never the only story. It was just the last one standing. If your brain feels a little bent right now, good. That means it's working. That's exactly the reaction physicists had when Feynman first laid this out. Drop a comment and tell me, if every possible version of your day is technically happening and mostly cancelling out, which version do you think would survive the interference the loudest? Hit like if this actually made you rethink the word reality. Subscribe if you want more of Feynman's ideas broken down like this, and I'll see you in the next one, where we go even deeper into the mind of the man who rewired how we understand the universe.